They give Newton a pacifier
After he walked out of the press conference,
tranquilizer dart. You guys are hard on the two message, Mark.
he was discouraged.
I had a little respect up for him till after the game.
He's an excellent player, but he could have handled it differently at the press conference. At least he's not jumping himself.
You didn't want there, you believe me. The last was marked on the minimum standard. Yeah, I just there's a little piece, over 20 years that should be probably more like 25.
I have a question. Come on, finance, I need to address. Oh, yeah, you could. But if I just find that tires in their bogey or something. Yeah, they got the brake loop. I did it 3 years ago. There's some places, Doc, you'll change oil the engine over time. You didn't realize.
Yeah.
It's coming to oil. The Coast Guard showed up and they moved around. No, they finally, they could have written it with a big ticker, but they didn't.
Yeah, I've never seen a better defense. Never seen a better one. He got knocked out.
Dave, I got on my stuff at 7 o'clock.
Okay. Okay, the February 8th meeting of the Airport Advisory Board will come to order. And would you all please rise and join me in the flag salute?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item on the agenda is public comments.
And you know me, I don't comment often.
If you could
please
state, oh, go ahead.
Please state your name and, I believe you need the address too, don't you?
Social Security number? Yeah, my name's Kevin Pratt. I live at 8000 Summit, Lenexa, Kansas. I know that we're going over the minimum standards basically line by line, and I know that tonight we're going to get to the insurance portion of it. And I just wanted to put something out there for thought. Back on the August 10th airport board meeting, I believe Ray Dewar brought up to Brian about the minimum standards, section 5.2, covering the insurance on the hangars. Ray was concerned that the insurance, the way it was written, the requirements would have to do with individual hangar tenants. Brad assured Ray that it did not have to do with individual tenants, but commercial tenants. So I'm wondering why we even have it in there the way it's written, because it says all tenants shall. I think it should say all commercial tenants shall. In preparation of trying to make sure that I provided the insurance that was required by my lease, which the lease is actually different than the minimum standards, I sent a copy of the minimum standards 5.2 section to my insurance carrier. And I didn't give them any background, didn't say there was any struggle going on, just said, here's what they want, am I covered? The response they sent to me is, it's our understanding that the city is requiring you to carry fire legal liability, which is not covered under your aircraft policy, but we can provide it for you. The premium is usually around $500 a year. So the insurance that they're asking for isn't covered by our aircraft insurance. Unless we taxi our aircraft into the hangar and it blows up, they won't cover it catching fire. If we're in there working on it, have a space heater, electrical fire, whatever, it will not be covered by our aircraft insurance. And I think a lot of people are misunderstanding, thinking, well, we've got liability insurance on our airplane anyway. We're already covered. Not for what they're asking for. They're asking for basically hangar keeper insurance, which is what the chapter hangar has a hangar keeper insurance policy as well as a liability policy. And we insure the structure with the city as named insured. But that's because, you know, it's an asset there that we need to protect, that the EAA requires that we have those policies in place and actually forces us to go through them to get them so that they know that they're written properly. But for an individual hangar tenant to have that is abnormal. I mean, if you're renting a duplex, you don't insure the duplex. You get renter's insurance to insure your contents. The duplex is insured through the owner, and it's part of the rent that you pay. Same with hangars, always been that way out there. Our rent paid insurance policy that the airport board provided for the structure. If your structure falls on my airplane, no fault. My airplane's covered by me. I would request that we change that line to say all commercial tenants. Food for thought.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Jerry Gibner, 14810 West 159th, and I'm just here to complain about the city's audio system, because what Kevin just said, I was having a terrible time hearing.
That may be me.
Yeah, maybe, but I always have trouble hearing in here, so I just wanted to ask everybody to speak into the mic and loud. Thank you, that's all I got.
What'd you say, Jerry? Okay, anybody else? Then we'll move on to the consent agenda and consider a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I so move.
I'll second.
Okay, got a second. Any further discussion on this? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None? Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is to review sections 3, 4, and 5 of the minimum standards. And before we get started here, I'd like to say that we appreciate the input from the audience, but if you're going to speak on something, please raise your hand to be recognized. Okay, we'll get started then.
Okay, during the January meeting, the board went through sections 1 and 2 of the minimum standards. Tonight, we're scheduled to go through sections 3, which is construction on airport property, section 4, environmental issues, and section 5, general procedures.
Before we start, now, we went through section 1 and 2. Has our legal counsel reviewed sections 1 and 2 yet, or are we waiting for the whole?
Actually, I got with Brad after the meeting to make sure we had everything together, that we both, we combined our thoughts on what occurred. We were waiting until we got all the sections done, and then we're going to send it to our city attorney to review the whole packet.
When he goes through with his little pencil, are you going to mark that down when you bring it back to us?
Yeah, I'll provide a copy of what we sent, and then I'll provide a copy of any changes that he wanted to see.
Then will we get another chance to comment on it after that? Because, I mean, like the lease, we didn't. We just did our one thing and went to the lawyer, and then that was it. We never got a chance to discuss further anything coming back from the lawyer.
Right, well, right now we have a tentatively set for council consideration on April 4th, if you want to review the comments at the April 4th meeting, and then we can take it back to the city council the following meeting. That'd be fine too. You want to go that route?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we ready to start?
Yes.
Okay, section 3, does anybody have anything on the first 2 paragraphs there? I thought it was interesting myself that it said any non-aviation use. I guess I don't know what we would have non-aviation out there in our little triangle. Any thoughts on that, or any? Is this normal?
Dave, I guess I, well,
You wanna grab this, you wanna sit up here?
We have an opening up here, Brad.
yeah, sometimes at airports, you're not required to always lease things for aviation uses. If there's a tenant or need or something, you can do a short-term lease up to a year
Mhm.
for non-aviation use. So if you've got an empty building, it doesn't look like you're gonna have any kind of aviation tenant, you can do a short-term lease for somebody if you choose. That's why that's in there, just so you don't get stuck with a long-term tenant that is a non-aviation tenant, so.
Okay, that makes sense. Did you hear that, Jerry?
I did.
Okay. Makes sense.
Well, then, the other one is it's just the approval from the city council, so, I mean, does the advisory board get any say in any of this? You know, when it comes to these things, like, I mean, the city obviously does the final approval, but is that how everything's gonna get worded in these things? It's always gonna be the city council?
I mean, I think the last time we changed a lot to the airport manager, for some things. If you want us to, bring this back for a recommendation before the advisory board,
Yeah, well, typically, if somebody wants to lease a building or something, it usually flows through the advisory board. Maybe it's not written in black and white, but that's kind of a
Yeah, that's what I'm
process.
saying, right? It'd be nice to put that in there. I mean, everything that we do from an advisory board has to get approved by the city council. That's a given, right?
so just after, shall be made to the airport manager, recommended, for seek recommendation, from the advisory board and approval from city council?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, whoop, yes.
Down at the bottom of this paragraph, it says, the city may authorize non-aviation use of any portion of the airport or any building on the airport on a case-by-case basis. I think the city has been very concerned about people who are subleasing as to whether or not, first of all, they get the hangar or someone that's on the hangar list. Now you're saying that, hey, these people are gonna have this building, this hangar, for non-aviation use, and it's gonna be unavailable for any airport until that lease is gone. That's the way I read it.
Well, I guess I mean, from my standpoint, as Brad mentioned earlier, if we have a building sitting empty,
Yeah, that's how I took it as well, right?
but I mean, if we got someone that wants to use it for aviation, that's gonna go first.
Right, like, we can't get a flight school into our thing out there, we could rent it out for office space.
I understand the office space there. I'm speaking specifically of hangars, because we have had people before come in and start using those hangars for non-aviation commercial endeavors, and was not found out about it until later, and then were evicted.
Yeah, but if you read the very first part of the sentence, if the aviation needs of the airport are sufficiently met, that's the only,
I think if I go back into the lease, I'm not sure, but I think it states in there that the hangar will be used for aviation only. You can't store boats, you can't store your cars, restoration in there, you can do it, but as long as you have an airplane in there, it's okay, but it's gotta be aviation use.
But the last sentence there, application of such non-aviation use shall be made to the airport manager, and approval from city council must be received. So it looks like it can be overridden.
Well, I think we've already
that's
changed
what
it.
we're putting in there, the airport advisory board.
Yeah, we've changed that already.
Okay, and I think also that this whole thing was, of course, directed at initially, when Brad put it together at the, I thought was to the commercial use of it, and it's specifically because of the issue we had with the skydiver, where he was saying, you can't use it for non-aviation use, if you got FAA money, you gotta let me have this in here, and I think that whole section that was in there was to allow the city to deal with farming, things of that nature, without violating that.
Okay, let's try the 3.1, we're kinda stopped on the first one. Lease term, what have we got on that? Item 3.1.
The only one I had to say there is 20 years long enough? I was thinking more like 25, you know? Like, if you look at leasing any kind of property to somebody that's willing to put up a commercial structure or build a bank of hangars or something like that, he's never gonna recoup his money in 20 years, so why would he, you know, it's not feasible.
It still has the option, you can go for another 20 though, renew for another 20.
Yeah, I just found it weird, it says 20 years, and then it says you can renew it up to 40, it just seemed to contradict each other there.
That's kinda normal, though. I know when we built our hangars out at New Century, we had a 30-year lease with options for 3 10-year renewals. So,
Right, but the initial one is the 30, I'm saying the 20, initial 20 is pretty low for being able to do anything meaningful.
Well, it says you can do 40 years for the initial lease.
20's been
Yeah,
pretty
but most
standard.
people aren't probably gonna commit to something if the initial lease is only 20 years, is what I'm saying.
Most of them over, I think most of them over at New Century, when they first came in, I know that, most of the buildings that come up were a 20-year lease.
you know, I stand corrected, mine was 23 with 3 10s. So, and the first 20 years was to to pay off the bonds.
I don't think most banks will do a commercial loan on a building or property on leased land unless it's at least 30. So, I mean, if you're trying to get
Yeah, that's kind of my point, you know.
commercial operation of some sort there, they'd play hell get the bank to finance it on less than 30.
Like I said, it can go to 40, so if someone has an issue, we can grant 30 easily.
Yeah. I think it's kinda wide open here, but, okay. Exceed 20 years, but in no case more than 40.
Oh, okay, it says however the
Yeah, I
initial
think
term can be longer than 20.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let's go on to 3.2, construction on airport property. A, anybody got a problem with A?
Yeah, the only one I found in A is, the only thing not mentioned anything here is about heights of clearance zones. It talks about everything, you know, about being on the restricting line and stuff like that, but there's no mention of height there.
It mentions a development plan though, wouldn't that cover it, Brad?
I think it would, but we could probably add, you know, nothing will be able to penetrate FAA Part 77 services or something like that.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of talked about when it's about the building restriction line, and
Mhm.
it's typically 35 feet, and that's what's shown on your airport layout plan, so you'd have to exceed a 35-foot building.
I wasn't thinking
But it's-
building, I
but
was thinking a tower and antenna,
it's
you know,
possible.
anything like that.
Think it's worth any changes?
Well, we do say, or in conflict with the approved airport
Yeah.
layout plan.
Hoping that you made us a good layout plan, well, we ought to be covered then.
Yes, you've got a good current one too, so.
Okay, item B. I think the city takes care of that one for us, don't they? That's what everybody complains about anyway when they're building things.
That's correct.
Okay. And item C, I think that's kind of a same thing. Item D. Anybody see any problem with that? Okay. Item E.
I had it marked, I just don't understand why, they're talking about removing the building, you know, like, if it was rentable or something, why would they want to remove it?
I think it might have been more related to any kind of
Privately owned.
semi-temporary building.
Mhm.
A temporary, yeah.
Yeah, privately owned structures, probably, yeah. Not for aviation purposes, so, So that kind of protects the airport, I would think. Anything else on that one? We'll go to F, leased land. Okay. That one sounds good to me. Let's go to 3.3. Flying clubs. A, no, 3.3, no, never mind, not A, just 3.3.
Yeah, I just put there, that one needs to match the lease, whatever verbiage we currently have in the lease.
And I guess we don't know that, do we? Because we haven't addressed subleasing.
Well, there was this thing about the, till the end of 2016, and I
Right.
think we changed the verbiage on that, so this should match that.
Staff recommendation was no subleasing, starting in 2016. Council, felt that was, not appropriate, so they said, to be able to sublease through the end of 2016 to December 31st.
I like the wording where it says you can, the city council can extend it.
Right, and they would always have that right.
Yes.
Okay. Done with 3.3. 3.4, flying clubs.
On A, the one, second last line there, it says properly certificated. I don't know that that's the right verbiage there, I just put maybe registered, or, I mean, you can certainly have flying clubs with experimental airplanes.
Correct. Or we could even strike that line if you think. Suppose if it says evidence that such aircraft are properly certificated, I also could mean, you're, doing your annual inspections, things like that, maintenance is
Yeah,
taken care of.
I don't think it's up to us to police that. What do you?
no, policing's a different matter, but I mean, as far as what's in the club, I mean, I think it just needs to be like registered and with a current annual or something to that effect, right?
Well, that's up to the club. They should furnish the, city with the, their, certificate that they have, and their incorporation of the
Yeah,
club
that's,
and all
that's
that.
mentioned in there already.
But it's not up to the city to police it for police, annuals and that kind of maintenance. Cause that should fall under the FAA at that point.
I think the insurance part of it's good. Yeah, need to provide insurance.
Yeah, unless you want to just strike that line that says evidence that such aircraft are properly certificated.
Yeah, I'm not sure it really lends itself to any kind of
Okay.
I don't either.
specific.
So we're gonna say a description of all aircraft used, evidence of ownership of such aircraft, but, okay.
Should meet FAA standards.
Okay. What did you strike there?
Basically that, after the all aircraft used,
Okay.
second line up from the bottom,
Okay, then evidence of, anything after that's gone.
just up to the certificated.
Okay, got it. Item B.
That's standard clause.
Yeah, I was okay with that.
Is that all right? I don't, haven't seen any, everybody all right with B? Hearing nothing, we'll go on to C. I don't know about that, but seems like we're, I don't think the club would want their aircraft to be used by anybody else, so, but the members.
What about a lease back?
Well, that's different. It has to still be strictly in the club's name.
I think that's a definition of a club, so you're not gonna be using this thing for charter or air taxis, so. Okay, I'm good with all that, how about,
Yeah, I'm good.
have one comment?
I kind of question if, whether or not the club member gets instruction in that, is that airplane for hire?
No, they don't consider that, it's usually for training purposes, right? They usually have flight instructors within each club that are capable of signing you off on the particular airplane that you're flying.
Right, but it's not the instructor that's a member of the club, most probably, or renting the airplane.
The clubs I've been associated with have been used for instruction by club members. They have a certified instructor that is part of the club, and he's was always authorized to give instruction, dual instruction in that airplane.
And the last sentence says flight instruction may be given in club aircraft, so.
Yep. Back in the back.
Yes, Dave. The, item C is part of the verbiage for any person for hire. I don't know that I have the verbiage right now, but I'd like to consider that we reword that so that things like our glider club that provide sightseeing rides, which are part of our insurance policy, is not considered for hire. In other words, it has to be flown by a properly certificated club member to give a ride and receive payment. But I'd like to see where we somehow read that verbiage so that it's not considered.
Well, you probably receive payment, but it don't have to be, it can be for reimbursement of expenses. That-
Yeah, whatever, but
That gets used a lot in this industry.
It's called donations.
well, our insurance doesn't consider it that way.
Mhm.
We don't accept donations, but we will accept for a certain fee, a sightseeing ride like our insurance covered. We're allowed to give instruction, provide recreational, by the club members' usage of the aircraft, and by a club member, provide a sightseeing ride and accept payment for it.
Is hire a sticking point? We just need to delete the word hire. Not be used by any person for charter or air taxi. Flight instruction may be given in club aircraft.
I think hard, get rid of it.
Or hire for profit, because we don't consider ourselves that we make profit. Maybe that's more like Dale Rose's statement is donation.
That's reimbursing for expenses.
It's reimbursing for expenses,
Mhm.
but so long as it's clear that there is an organization that does accept payment for a ride by a club member, and it's not for hire, then that would be in violation of how it's written here.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna delete hire if that's.
Just delete hire, and I think maybe that'll work for you.
Okay.
Item 4, Rule 4.1. We got a lot to go through here. Shall not store, okay, asbestos, urea, foam installation, formaldehyde, wow. Transformers or other equipment which contain dielectric fluid. Okay.
Maybe just go through it. Did anybody have anything for 4.1 for that whole section? I didn't.
Okay. Anybody have anything there? I guess I don't either. Of course, we're storing tanks of gasoline in the airplanes, but what can you say? Okay, 4.2, environmental cleanup laws. Anybody got anything on that? I assume they're talking about fuel spills or something like that? That's probably in there. Nothing on that?
Well, except that it just says, it doesn't really specify that it's strictly for commercial side of the airport, and you have this sentence down there. It says the airport tenant will prepare and submit the required plans and financial assurances in association with such cleanup laws. I can see that for a commercial tenant, can't see that for hangar lease.
See that we when we allow crop dusting, well, we don't wanna be mixing chemicals on site.
Right.
They can bring it in their barrels and pump it into the airplane, but we don't want them out
Right.
there.
But I mean, we need to make sure that this primarily relates to the commercial users of the airport rather than the hangar leases.
Mhm.
Somehow.
Airport tenant.
Yeah, pretty general.
Mm-hmm.
I would say maybe
Brad.
commercial tenant or something with it.
Well, I was saying, I mean, once again, this is a catch-all to make sure, and we did talk about fuel. We went through that whole thing on having fuel in the hangar, and we talked about solvents, things like that, but this, the intention of this is, things beyond, above and beyond, that's why there's asbestos, formaldehyde, and all this other things listed.
That's how I took it, like hazardous materials, like any kind of.
So, yeah, obviously, fuel can be a hazardous material, but we're talking things that will be,
Yeah.
significantly detrimental to groundwater, things like that, so.
Okay. 4.3, environmental notices. Yeah? That's kind of standard, I think. Anybody got anything on that? No, this is interesting. 4.4, environmental survival.
Does that mean that
You're forever on the hook.
It means if you survive, we're gonna terminate your lease, I guess. No, that, I haven't read it, but. Any environmental.
Means that 50 years down the road, they find that you've done something in your hangar, they can come after you.
And survive.
Yeah, that's exactly what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You've buried a bunch of batteries and
I see.
it can be
Yeah.
proven.
You're gonna make an environmental inspection each time a hangar guy leaves,
No.
the guy
I'm
that
not,
rents it
no.
then
The
inherits
the airport manager probably ought to inspect a hangar.
the guy, give an environmental clean by the house for the next guy that starts.
Yeah.
Yeah, they run into this on that station up there that they're gonna make CVS or whatever it is, the drugstore. They've done, about 5, core samples now, and they keep running into stuff. I think that still,
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's gonna play out, but I think the original property owner is still on the hook for that.
Brad, could we put in that the airport manager will inspect? the
Yeah,
hangar?
it's gonna be difficult to, I mean, you can inspect the gas station across the street until you disturb the soil, you don't smell the fuel. So,
Well, these hangars, most of them are, are either concrete or
I got a lot of gravel out there.
and gravel,
Yes.
Well, I guess what we're, like, to Cam's point is, he wants to protect the new guy coming in, so he doesn't get, somebody did something, buried something out of the gravel. The airport manager can at least do some sort of visual inspection and say, all right, it's a concrete floor, it doesn't look like there's anything here. I don't know if that should be in the lease, or is it part of a checklist that you go through.
I would say that'd be a checklist item.
I mean, that could be part of just something in the lease that says, the city or the airport manager and the hangar tenant have inspected the hangar and find no environmental.
Yeah, at some point you gotta give them the key anyway.
So I guess we can,
But I mean, I think this section still needs to stay.
yeah, I don't think
agree.
everybody's talking about taking it out, but somewhere, how do we know that, the problem isn't being transferred? Somebody who created the problem is now long gone, and now the new guy's coming in thinking that I got a clean hangar, and whoops, it's not clean, and they didn't do anything. I suppose that gets back to the proof issue of finding out.
Could you add another sentence or something saying that it'll be inspected by the airport manager and
Well, but I don't really think it belongs in here, that's something more for
Yeah.
the lease, you know, when the current leasee, you know, gives up his lease and turns in his key is to meet the airport manager and view the facilities, to sign off on any kind of damage and, you know, all that, those types of things usually happen when you're renting.
It'd be kinda like an apartment, you
Exactly.
moving out, I'd be,
Do you have any,
landlord comes by and checks it for.
do you have anything in place now when someone leaves, a checklist, you go through it and?
Not really, I mean, really, there's just the hangar there, so it's, you know, it's the empty hangar, concrete floor, electrical, you know, if you see electrical stuff all over the place that's totally out of whack, you can question them on that kind of stuff, but that'd be the only extreme I could see.
Yes.
If I may, Johnson County just has the maintenance crew check the hangars as they change hands. That's what they're doing over there.
That's something Jim could probably do too, you know, when they turn in a key, just have them go in and vet, you know, check out the hangar to make sure it's completely empty before you give it to the next person.
But there needs to be some sort of a release of liability for the new tenant.
That could be part of that.
We'll work on that, but I think that'll be separate from the minimum standards, so.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. General procedures, section 5. How about 5.1? Anything on that, A or B there? Seeing nothing, how about 5.2?
I wouldn't think there'd be anything on 5.2, Dave.
Yeah, 5.2 just needs to match the lease.
Well, this 5.2 is where we're talking about the, let's read that. Where
That's
is
all
it?
the insurance.
Huh?
That's all the insurance requirement. I just highlight that whole section, it needs to match what we currently have in the lease.
Right, I think the current lease doesn't have item A in it about the fire.
Oh, okay.
And if I could, if you'd like me to go ahead and read what's in the current lease, just so everybody is aware of it. Current lease states, the lessor agrees to keep the building where the leased premises are located insured against loss or damage from fire or other casualties. The lessor shall not insure any property owned by the leasee, and leasee shall not be a loss payee on the insurance policy maintained by the lessor. The leasee agrees to maintain in full force and effect during the term of this agreement and any extension thereof, insurance on the aircraft to be hangared at the leased premises. Such insurance to afford protection of not less than $100,000 with respect to any one person, $100,000 with respect to any one accident, not less than $200,000 with respect to property damage. The city of Gardner shall be named as an additional insured on such policy.
Well, so, I'm a little confused there on this one, so what's A doing there?
That's what I say, that whole section's gonna get ripped out and replaced with what we currently have in the lease.
Okay, so that,
So
this
this
whole
section-
section is,
Yeah, this section here gets replaced with 1, 2, and 3.
okay,
That whole 5.2.
all right,
Just since we already beat that dead horse already.
we know that.
Yeah.
You still remember that, Brian?
No, I try to forget that day.
Okay, all right. 5.3, hold harmless.
Pardon me, what was decided on A, B, and C?
It's,
And Brian, for hold harmless there, 5.3, that's also
well, he
that
was
same
asking, Pam was
section.
asking about, it's item 1, 2, and 3 as in the lease.
A, B, and C, what did you just do with that?
We're getting rid of what's currently in the minimum standards, A, B, and C, and replace it with 1, 2, and 3. But I was just adding to that, rule 5.3 below it is the number 3 item. So that one also needs to be replaced.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll just reword 5-3, the hold harmless, exactly like it's in the lease.
Yeah, and then get rid of A, B, and C and make it that, that we have there as 1 and 2.
Right,
I don't think we
you
understand.
cross out A, B, and C, but then you're still back on the lease.
Yeah, so 5.2, A, B, and C are gonna be removed, and what's currently in the lease as Article 11, 1 and 2 will go in its place. And then since they have a separate rule, 5.3, with the hold harmless clause, that's our item 3 from Article 11 from the lease. So we'll replace with what's already in the lease.
Okay. 5.4, knowledge of rules implied. That's interesting. Anything?
The only thing I noted there, are we really gonna bother with paper copies, or are you just gonna post this up on the internet? Because if that's the only provision we're gonna have, we might as well just scratch anything that relates to paper.
But I actually don't mind having a paper copy out at the airport.
Okay.
For anybody that comes in and wants to look through it.
5.5, conflict of rules and regulations.
The only one I had there is, it says that extra clause there about and any other city rules applicable to the same area are more stringent. So basically, any rules that the city have that are more stringent than what are defined here will prevail. I'm just kind of know, how's anybody supposed to know this?
And
Right. The other one says the FARs supersede the, what's in here. Yeah, the first part says that the FARs take precedence over what's in here.
what rules or regulations would there be left? Because everything has to be done to code, the city does that.
Right, that's, and I'll let Brad talk that, but what I was thinking of building codes, those types of things. But that's already discussed earlier in this.
Yeah, that's already mentioned in the part about building structures.
Could that go away, that last part?
I think it probably could, it also has to do with the zoning and platting, some of those things, but yeah, it all
You gotta
ties.
have a building permit, you
Yeah,
gotta.
but we actually got zoning mentioned earlier also, so.
Correct, so yeah, we could just,
You wanna ditch that whole part of that second sentence?
The if and where there exists a conflict between any rules, regulations prescribed, we'll just go from that
Exactly.
point and delete.
Yeah, 'cause the FAR stuff, everybody can look that stuff up, so those superseding this is fine.
Yep.
Okay, penalty for violation. Anybody got anything on that?
Just the city council word in there, if we could put in that airport advisory board stuff in there, pending a hearing by the city council.
I think they'd be the ultimate ones that would make a decision. I mean, they could definitely
Right.
come before the board for a recommendation.
I think when you bring it to the board for that first,
Yeah, I just wanted it in there so that, people related to aviation had something to say in there before it went to city council was all.
The timeframe's gonna be a little tricky there, 'cause it shall not exceed 30 days. And so the time we get something to the board and then the city council, that timing may be an issue. But yeah, I agree, it should come before the board.
okay. So we're done with 3, 4, and 5.
Did we address, back to the insurance? You just heard that the insurance you're asking for isn't giving you what you want. And it's gonna cost us $500 if we really comply. You're setting up a playpen for those lawyers.
Wait a minute, I thought we,
But Cam, is he referring to the, like the part, the lesser is written
I
up?
think you need to read that real close there. It says aircraft insurance, your aircraft will be insured. It doesn't say it will cover the hangar.
Exactly, if the very
Is that
first
what
one
you-
says.
is that- I asked, Lee the other day to talk with the city attorney and I had an attorney look at it, and he says, you're liable for the whole thing.
Yeah, but it says right here.
Lee says, it costs $255 an hour to talk to that attorney, and he wasn't gonna do it. I'd like to know, I'd like you to spend a little city money and find out how they're interpreting that. Because what you're asking for, we can give you with the airplane thing. We have an incident in there. The airplane insurance isn't gonna cover your building, but your wording sounds like we have to rebuild your building and pay for all the lost rent while all this is going on. Which for a hobby, not a commercial, if Dave wants to do it with his big business, that's fine. But for an individual who's got an airplane, to put that exposure on his family, college education, retirement, all that, you guys just suck up, build your new building. And the whole thing hinges on this $300,000 that the city has for deductible. The airport board had $1,000 deductible. That's not too bad. But the city, I think, all this verbiage is trying to get back their $300,000 before, so it doesn't cost them anything.
Well,
Under that scenario, why don't we raise the city deductible to $500,000, and you can tax all the people in town, and you're just changing the whole ballgame from what the airport board did before. There was a line in the sand, we insure the buildings, you insure what you put in the building.
I think, Article 11, Section 1 says we will insure the building. We also have a discussion item tonight because we've heard a lot of questions about is the city insuring the building. And so, discussion item number 6 talks about building insurance. We basically kept and enhanced the insurance the airport board had.
Right, yeah, I mean, that lessor is the city. The
Right.
city agrees to keep the building where the leased premises are located, insured against loss or damage from fire or other casualties.
And I'd be happy to jump to discussion item number 6 real quick if that's gonna be, if that's.
I think the confusion though is because it says the lessor, is basically responsible for insuring the building or the premises. But then in the second part there, the lessee, it talks about him insuring his airplane and with respect, and then, an accident for liability of a person, but then it says $200,000 with respect to property damage. I think that's where it's getting confusing, because the first one, item 1 already talks about the city insuring the building, so then what property damage are we referring to?
I mean, my understanding, is a negligent act by a tenant. I mean, if he runs his plane into a door.
Right, but that's not the whole building complex.
Right, we're covering the building. We have
Okay,
coverage.
but go to your lease on Article 12 casualty loss, paragraph 3, and that's the part that I asked Lee to check with the attorney and how you're interpreting that.
Well, it says for anybody that doesn't have it, it says if partial or total destruction occurs or arises out of the negligence or fault of the lessee, its officers, employees, or agents, then leasee shall promptly reimburse the lessor or the city for the cost of repair, restoration, or replacement, and shall pay for any loss sustained by lessor as a result of such occurrence.
That's lost rent and all that.
So if it's a negligent act by a tenant, then the city should be made whole. That's what it says.
That's a sticking point on.
What, is that for, could that be for the amount of insurance that we're asking them to, everybody to have on their airplane? I mean, on their.
That wouldn't even cover the startup. What's that?
Yeah, I guess that's kind of a question back to the insurance policy that we currently have on the building is like, where do they draw that line in the sand, for the entire building's already, you talk about negligence, right? Is this line referring to negligence up to the maximum of $100,000, $200,000 that we're requiring the tenants to have?
Yeah,
And then the policy would take over the rest that we have on the buildings? That's the part that Cam's getting at, is whether he's responsible for the whole $1.2 million complex as a result of that, or just up until the insurance premium that he was asked to have.
I will ask on that. I'll spend a little city money. I'll spend a little city money on that.
And he'll probably charge us, though. We could jump to 6 if you'd like.
Well, that's just because there's been a lot of discussion about the
Sure.
building. Discussion item number 6, I think we're done with, new business item number 1.
We're done.
Okay. So we're into discussion items. We'll jump to discussion item number 6, which is business insurance. Several tenants have stated that the airport board used to carry insurance on buildings, and there appeared to be a confusion on whether the city of Gardner is continuing to insure buildings at the airport. This is to reassure everyone the city is continuing to provide insurance for both the underground tanks as well as the buildings at the airport. The Langton tank policy is still in effect. This policy is the exact same as it was when held by the Airport Association. The only difference on this is the name was changed from the Airport Association to City of Gardner. This is an underground storage tank liability policy. Locked-in liability, this policy is still with Old Republic, same as it was with the Airport Association, except the limits were increased from 2 mil to 5 mil, and we added hangar keepers at 1 mil. Name of the insured changed to City of Gardner. This is Airport Operators Liability Insurance.
What was the 1 mil number again, Brian?
That's for hangar keepers. And then item number 3, MPR, Midwest Public Risk Property. This still covers all city property. So we do have insurance.
So the tank thing was a requirement from the state several years ago, and it seemed like it was $300 or $400. Do you know how much that stuff is?
I don't recall. We have Shannon's our risk manager, and she went through the insurance that you guys had, and
Yeah.
she just, everywhere it said Airport Association, put City of Gardner.
Do we know what the deductible is on that building policy?
No, I can get you that. It's not 300,000, I don't believe. I mean, we have a fairly high deductible on everything we have, but I don't believe it's that number, but I can get you that.
All right, thank you.
I believe that comes due this month.
We may be on a different schedule. I mean, Shannon's been taking care of that, so.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I know it was due to pay, and that was one of our big February expenses of 15,000 or so. Okay. We'll drop back to item 1 on discussion. The update on real property acquisition.
Okay, this is for the Paulson tract. On January 22nd of this year, the appraisers met on the Paulson property. The attendees included the owner, our city engineer, then the lead and review appraiser, a real estate agent for the owner, Brad from PEC. The tenant was not in attendance. The visit lasted about 30 minutes. The appraisers walked the grounds and into the house to the garage. They took multiple pictures inside and out and interviewed the owner about a variety of subjects, including the age of appliances, furnace, AC, and backup generator. And the meeting was cordial in nature. The appraiser will be sending PEC report. It should be email today, probably within the next week. That's how I got that. Once the appraisal is complete, negotiations with the landowner and tenant relocation discussions can begin. PEC survey crews did field work the week of January 25th, and on the week of February 15th, they are planning to start drilling for a limited Phase 2 environmental study to check for soil contamination.
So Brad, feel we're still on track with this project in terms of getting the money?
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks behind my original schedule. I think we can make that up.
I see one deal in there. It's the same real estate agent that was used with the Sizemores.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, we had a problem with them?
Yes. Okay, update on leases submitted to the city.
We did receive one additional lease today, signed with a check for the last 2 months, or for January and February, so that number is at 86 out of 98. As of, when this put out last Friday, we had, 21, of the leases had provided a copy of their insurance. We do have, some other issues out there, checks made out to the city but no leases, checks made out to the Airport Association with no leases. At the current time, we've had no response from 2 tenants. One tenant lease did come back, returned to sender after 2 months for a bad address. We got with Dale and we did resubmit that lease last week. And then we do have, 2 hangars that people have said they're no longer interested in, and that's, hangar number 60. And then we also have, hangar 13, which is an open hangar. So we'll be working on that to get those filled.
All right. What's being done on the proof of insurance? Are they, doing anything to go after the ones that haven't filled that in, or like, what's the timelines on getting that completed?
Initially, we gave, you know, because of the lateness of it, you know, when people only had a couple weeks to do it all, we weren't requiring with the lease, if they signed the lease, we were gonna give them about a month to provide us that insurance. Since we are now in February, we will be sending out letters to those that did not provide insurance, saying we need it. And also to those that we're still, working with on getting signed leases in. So.
You know, I don't think I sent in my insurance, now that you mentioned it. I've
Yeah.
got 2 airplanes, and one of them may be there.
We moved your airplane out to the curb earlier.
I need to make myself a note on that. I'll just have it sent here to the city. Okay. Hangar 60, huh? Airfield grounds, fuel farm.
I got, number 3 first, the update on transition to the city.
Oh, okay, did I skip that one? Okay.
And that's just to follow up, each meeting until, you know, we'll provide that the Gardner Bank account is closed. The central bank account will remain open for the next month or 2 as we're finalizing everything. We have just under 90% of the leases have been renewed. Bill Boyd did sign an ag lease, for continuing to hay the property, and he sent in his payment. The city did hire Jim as an employee. The city has a contract for snow removal, the same as last year. And we are working with, Winger Oil, same as last year. We did obtain the motor fuel retailer's license with the state of Kansas. We have a contract with QT Pod from Boulder, Colorado. That's, I believe, I don't remember, it's the gold plan, it was the one that was like $9.95, same as last year. We do have a contract with Tank Management out of Topeka. There will be twice a week trash pickup, Monday and Thursday, with Gardner Disposal. If you see something that's needed more frequently, if something happens, just let us know.
Well, it'd be nice to have a nicer, and better looking, dumpster. One that's got lids on it.
I noticed that when I was out there last week. It's kind of, looks like it's seen some years.
The lids don't fit real good, they go down inside and then you gotta dig around trying to get something to, where you can get the lid up so you can put trash in.
Okay. The payment box was installed. I had a number of people talk about the nice lean we had to it. We went out there and we did found where it appeared to have been hit, even though I know there were a couple bollards right there to protect it, but we did straighten the box. The board will continue to review the minimum standards. Next meeting will be the last 2, I believe, 6 and 7.
I think so, yeah.
Based on comments tonight, what we'll do is we'll put together a revised, based on everything, send it to the city attorney for his review, and then bring that back to you in the April meeting. Because you'll see what you guys, what Brad and I wrote down for what you guys wanted, and you'll see what the city attorney came back with.
Yeah, and if the city attorney just finds something that just absolutely can't stroke out, just try to, question him about why, or what's the reasonale for it, right? So we have some kind of response.
City is also working on our CIP right now, which is our capital improvements plan. And so we're updating the city CIP to incorporate the airport's CIP. And we are continuing to pursue land acquisition to protect the runways.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. I came in with one piece of paper tonight, and maybe next 2 months I won't have any when I come in.
You expect much more coming in on that old bank account?
Well, we're still using the old bank account. I guess we're still using it because some people have not changed their banking, and it's coming to the Airport Association, so when it does, then Karen calls me, and I go and I'll put it in there, and then I'll write the
Okay.
check back. So, we're using it for that. What is there in it, 40,
But there's probably no other, expenses coming into it?
No, we had a couple this month.
Okay.
Just kind of a carryover from the last year, but there's no other expenses that I know of coming into it, so whenever we feel pretty good about everybody sending their money into the city, we can close her down.
Right. The biggest thing was for the automatic checks that were forwarded. It was made out to the Airport Association. So.
Mm-hmm. I did see, well, I guess we're on financials. We'll go back to
Airfield
We'll
grounds.
go back to airfield here tomorrow.
Thank you.
We'll go back to airfield, and I got one other thing. I didn't see any city financials here for this month.
Correct.
On the city finance, I got a question.
Mhm.
Now, the airport is a totally different type of, budget system than compared. The city works on the fact, and it's probably like what I did with the government. At the start of your fiscal year, you get a X number of dollars to get you through the year. With the airport, you don't get that. If you zero out, if you use it, when you budget, if you budget everything to where it ends up zero at the end of the fiscal year, you ain't gonna have any money for about 3 or 4 months to pay bills with.
That's
So
not.
you gotta rattle something.
Yeah, that's not how we're doing it. With the Airport Enterprise Fund, it's whatever you guys transferred in, and it's
Right.
with rent payments and then minus expenses, and that's what you got. And it's not use it or lose it. That's not how this
Right.
fund works.
Right.
I guess
So then what about the financials, like I sent you an email there on asking for the same kind of things that we have provided every month.
Right, I sat down with Laura, the finance director, about that. And what I'll say is there was concerns raised in the past on, would the city be billing staff time to the airport? Other than time charged by Jim as the current city employee, the city is currently not billing any time spent by staff against the airport budget. Kansas budget law does state that the governing body is responsible for the budget and any component of that budget, including revenues and approval of expenditures. A separate detailed expenditure summary associated with the airport or other departments is not done by the city. All expenditures are reviewed by council and are contained in their council packets, and packets are posted online the Thursday before the meeting. Council does meet the first and third Mondays of each month. The next meeting is February 15th, which is a week from tonight, and packets should be posted online this Thursday. When I give you the airport fund number that you would look up is airport fund, the code is 551. And anyone that has an interest can look through the expenditures using that code. Code 551 is purely for the airport. And if you have a question on a particular expenditures, definitely feel free to contact me, and we will look into that expenditure and report back to the board.
All right, so do you have a URL for that, or where we go, or where do we find that?
The city will post the council packets online. It should be probably on the front page. It should be a link on the city's website for council packets. And that'll have all the expenditures. The problem is they'll be commingled, and so they won't just be, say, airport, and it's all the airport, and then the utilities, and it's all utilities, they're commingled. So, but if you use the code 551, that'll be all airport expenditures.
So that'll cover what, like, what, as a board, we were required to, with the Information Freedom Act, or whatever it is there, we had to produce, audience and everybody a financial report, if they wanted.
Well, that, basically, with this being in the city's hand, I mean, the governing body is responsible for all budget-related items.
But we should be able to see expenditures as well as all the fuel sales and stuff like that, right? On this
You'll
report?
definitely see all expenditures. That was the question I asked Laura about, well, you know, how do you guys verify what the expenditures were?
Yeah, 'cause we'd like to get an idea, you know, in terms of fuel sales, you know, whether we got, you know, when we go buy another load of fuel, whether we got $50,000 sitting there to pay for that and that kind of thing.
If we don't know what's, in the kitty, it's kinda hard to advise you guys what expenditures you can, spend money on. We can reprioritize things.
Well, I think what will happen, I mean, the normal expenditures, whether it's purchasing fuel, doing those types of things, I mean, that's gonna continue. We're not, like I said, currently, they're not charging any city employees other than Jim out of it. Any big items, if we're gonna do some, you know, taxiway repairs or things like that, all that comes before the board. And we would present this as, we talk about the cost associated with it, and, we'd have to make sure we can't approve a contract if the funds are not available.
How about ordering fuel? Jim said we're starting to get low out there.
This is the time, I guess, we need to talk about it, right? Where we figure out whether we get 8,000 gallons or 5,000 gallons or whatever, and make a recommendation. Is that how it's gonna go, Brian?
Sharon mentioned that the fuel was getting low at the end of the month.
we can take about 7,000 gallons.
Sure.
But I mean, is this the point, Brian, then, that we can discuss that, and figure out what would be the best option, and then we just have to tell you about it and you order it, or is that something that then has to be okayed by city council as well?
Well, I
think that
I guess that's kind of a day-to-day operational issue. If we need fuel,
How we've normally done that is we talk to Barry at Wenger Oil and say, Barry, you anticipate the fuel going down anymore? Because I expect it's at a pretty low level right now.
Right.
And if it's a big, I doubt it, well, then we take all we can get.
And I think what's gonna happen is when Jim tells us, and then he mentioned 7,000 a day, we'll work with you tomorrow. And I mean, from our standpoint, from a city standpoint, that's an operational day-to-day issue. We would just go ahead and order that fuel.
Right, just sometimes it might make sense, you know, to save on the hauling costs, right?
That's right. The hauling cost is the same whether you get 10 gallons or 10,000. So you should get all you can get.
Right, understand.
If that's the only variable. I'd like to get back to these financials a minute. You know, over the years, we have watched our bank accounts like a hawk, because we know that we have to live within our means, and that in a normal month, we would see our bank account probably raise on the average of 6,000 or 7,000. So we turned over about 178,000 to you, and we figure by this month it ought to be about 185, or somewhere around there. It ought to be going up, and so that's a very good indicator for us that things are going well, and we'd like to look at this, make sure that what we think is going on is going on, and I think you're trying to skirt that.
What I'm saying is that, the city council has all the budgeting authority. They're the ones that approve expenditures. The city does not make separate, expenditure reports for individual departments. And so the expenditure list goes to council. And anybody's free to look at that, and with that code, you can tell these are all the things that have been charged to the airport.
Well, I'm saying that, I don't know why you couldn't print out everything with that code, and we can bring it to this meeting.
Yeah, but like I said, he doesn't have the income too, so we need to see the income side of things.
But it,
not just-
from the perspective of being an advisory board, you're not approving those expenditures, that is a council item to approve. So,
But I would think our advisory board would like to see, well, if our monthly bank account is going down, well, why is it going down? Do we need to raise rents? Do we need to, are we doing some spending that we don't need to be doing? And,
I can take that back, but, we've had lengthy discussions on this. I mean, the electric utility board used to go through all the expenditures also. That became a utility advisory board, and, they no longer receive any sort of, monthly financials.
so how's your utility there doing financially?
Yeah, but are they even
And
tracked as a
the
separate
city
enterprise?
tracks that. I mean, that's,
But they're not being tracked as a separate enterprise like this is being, is it?
Okay.
oh, Brad, is that?
Yeah, I think the electric fund, the utilities are enterprise funds. So I guess the question, O'Brien, is it that difficult to, obviously we have this code set up for expenses, but they'd just like to see the revenues, whether or not they're approving just, the daily or monthly expenses. I think it's just more of a matter of, to see them.
I think the city has to know that information because of all of the input, or the money coming in from the airport needs to be used for airport.
Well, yeah, it all goes against this
operation.
enterprise, just like you charge it to an individual company if you were tracking 3 separate companies.
I will
I
ask
think they
again.
need to review that.
I reviewed it several times with the people to do that and was told that would not be forthcoming, but I can ask again.
Yeah. You kind of wonder where our money's going, don't we? All right, let's go on. What did we bypass? Airfield grounds and fuel farm status. That's usually Jim gives us any inputs that he has.
Well, the runway is somewhat wet at times, especially when we get up on in the freezing. There was a little damage on the threshold of 1.7. I went out yesterday and looked at it, kind of mashed it back in, and when it's right, it'll be rolled. It'll be okay until we get another wet spell, similar to what we had the last few weeks. The tanks, we haven't had any trouble recently. The last time we had a problem was that somebody had inadvertently put a switch on the wrong side, and it turned our fuel system off. And Dale called and said that they couldn't get fuel, so I went out and I rebooted it, and that took care of the problem. And Ray, you had a theory on that, I believe, didn't you, how that flipped that over too fast after it was flipped on or something?
Yeah, if you shut power off to an electronic device and plug it in way too fast, it never gets a proper reboot, so it leaves it in an indeterminate state where it won't do what it's supposed to do.
I just rebooted it, and everything came back to it.
You know what, in the springtime, when it's freezing and it's thawing, it's a very poor time to be you can easily rut up the runway then. Is there a possibility we might wanna just X that thing off till it unthaws and kind of gets solid?
Well, actually, the main problem is at the north end, and, when they put that system through there for our drainage, we never had a chance to get any vegetation on it, so there's nothing on there to hold up any power pressure. But out on the runway itself, it seems like it's in pretty good shape. But, and then on 321 also, that's got a reputation, wet runway more so on the, on the north end, northeast end of it. But actually, most of the pilots did a pretty good job trying to take care of it. I thank them for that, if you've ever out there.
Okay. Anything else?
No, man.
Anybody? Where are we at now? I should look at this thing. Other business. We got item one, suggestions, ideas for upgrades, site improvements.
This actually came from Dale, that he was thinking it might be a good idea that if we, ask people that, use our facility, if there's things they'd like to see, upgrades that they would, think are important, that they, get in contact with us and let us know. Dale, you can expand on that if you like.
Did you hear, Dale? Okay.
That idea came from one of the, hangar tenants, actually. It wasn't my idea, but I passed it on to you. And I think that would, you send out a letter to all the hangar tenants and to see what they would like to see improved on the airport. Make up a list, and then you could kind of prioritize things and, have a good, handle on, what's happening.
Yeah, like we've talked about different projects, right? One we were talking about was redoing the asphalt in front of the east red hangars, right? Getting quotes on those last year that we never got done. That was one project. We talked about projects where we, concrete the floors in all the older hangars, you know, and then we can truly equate the rents on those equally versus some have dirt floors, some have concrete floors. We've also mentioned about possibly enclosing those, open hangars. You'll find that now that you've got one open, when you go through the list, you'll probably go through 40 names before you find somebody who wants an open T. So that might be a, you know, obviously we gotta get quotes and all that kind of stuff and do our due diligence there and figure out what projects make the most sense. And then that's why we're so adamant about the financials, is so we know what projects we can accomplish this year, knowing what we have to, you know, that aren't in our budget per se.
And we need to widen that drive out there by the east side of the big hangar so this fuel truck can get in easier.
Jim actually gave me, 4 different, areas that we need to look at. One is the trees in the park there, and then widening that entrance.
We had tried to asphalt and do some sealing last fall and didn't get it done. Are you putting that on the schedule?
We budgeted, some funding for that this year. We haven't, just going into February, haven't really thought much about it yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, how about, status of appointments?
That's actually scheduled for next Monday night, February 15th, for city council to, appoint or make appointments to the airport advisory board. So, I have no idea. I haven't been.
So they haven't said anyone where, I mean, I've
not, no,
No?
I quite honestly, I don't even know who applied, so.
Okay, item 3, the airport newsletter.
That's actually something that was brought up by council because there's been a lot of, concern from tenants that, of not getting information, that they, you know, communication issues, between the city and tenants at the airport. And so one of our city council members, suggested that maybe an airport newsletter, that went out quarterly, that just, everybody that, we could post it, that we could mail it, we could send it to email addresses, and just kind of the happenings at the airport. Anything new coming down the pike. If we're gonna be starting to working on taxiways, we could put that in there. So that's something that the council has asked us to do. So that's something that'll probably be occurring. The first one will probably be in April.
I assume you're getting this on your website, all of the activities.
Mm-hmm.
And communication's a big thing with the people out there. They kinda like, we kept pretty well informed what was going on at the airport.
I mean, we, you know, and without the communication, there's a lot of rumors.
Yeah.
People don't hear anything, and so we like to make sure everybody is up to speed.
Okay.
The only other item I would add at this point in time is, the city did, Ed, I don't know if you know Ed Young, he used to be the Director of Aviation.
Yep.
He's with, George Butler Associates, GBA.
Mm-hmm.
And though they've actually submitted a proposal to the city to do a rates and charges study, to compare us to Miami County and Ottawa and Lawrence, those types of cities, so that's something we're looking at.
Okay. Any other business?
What about this last page that we're going to?
Oh, and the trees?
Yep.
Gordon, haven't been following you on that. What are we at?
This is the one that was, sent to you, Dave, about the study of the encroachment of the trees to the south and.
Oh,
Basically a tree 70 feet above runway 26, so I guess those are on the east side of Waverly?
Yeah, it's 1,416 feet east of the runway.
Yeah, so that's.
are those in our zone there?
Well, yeah, I saw that. I was gonna check on those when I get back to the office tomorrow.
Yeah, it's
It might
in
be-
our 20 to 1, 10 feet.
I was pretty impressed with the 1,416 feet east and 227 feet to the north. We do have John's, our GIS analyst here with the city. I asked him this afternoon if he could kind of plot that out, because I have no feel for where that is.
It's gotta be just east of, I would have to say it's gotta be just east of that,
Gas station?
yeah.
And to the north.
Because the power lines there, you see, they rerouted all the power lines right to the back side of that property, right?
Yeah, but 227 feet to the north. I would think that
North,
would put it
yeah.
on the other side, almost on the other side of 175th Street.
Oh, no, 'cause runway 8's quite a bit south of,
Okay.
175th Street,
Okay.
with all the hangars and everything in there. That's, yeah, it's gotta be right there. 'Cause there is nothing on the north side, right? That's that
No,
whole
there's-
empty lot,
yeah.
so.
That tree to the south,
people's backyard there.
How have you handled those in the past? Have you had something like this before, because those would be on private property?
Yeah, June's had to make some deals with the people over there on those private properties to get their okay on whether we can cut them down or trim them. Well, some of the trees to the south there, before we own some of that property, one of those is probably one of these, of this property we haven't bought yet. Right, like there's a tree here, which one is it, south from runway
south, well, I think that's probably on Mike Gardner's property.
Yeah, so we haven't laid it out yet, but my
40
guess is.
feet to the east.
Southwest of runway 3.
Yeah, 'cause we already own the property directly to
Wait a
the
minute,
south.
3 feet southwest.
Yeah, I think it's the guy who works for the city, his property, it's gotta be on his.
I don't know exactly how that, I don't know how all that plays out. That don't seem right to me.
Right, so like I said, we've got our GIS guy. I mean, I just got with him late this afternoon to see if he could actually plot out these dimensions so we get a feel for where they're at.
There's a cute little gal that was doing all that though. It's Tiffany, but she went to work in Colorado now.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You must have just left.
He did, first of the year.
Okay.
So it's been we get that every once in a while. When was it we pushed those trees out on the southeast side?
2 years.
Yeah. We took care of a lot of that a couple of years ago.
Yeah, we bulldozed it over home.
Okay. Anything else from Brian, you have anything else?
Nothing from me.
Good. How about a motion to adjourn then?
I'll motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
That's your 39, so that's on the.